Wu Jin looked out the small window of the human ship and saw the alien planet below. It was covered in purple and orange colors that made strange patterns across the surface. He had never seen anything like it before. This was his first time visiting another world as part of a human team, trying to make friends with alien races. The ship landed with a soft bump on a metal platform. Captain Hyun-woo stood up and straightened his blue uniform. "Remember, everyone," he said to his crew, "we are here to make peace. These aliens have things we need and we have things they want, but we must follow their rules." Sora checked her weapon one more time. She was the security officer, and her job was to keep everyone safe. She did not trust aliens very much. "I still think this is dangerous," she said quietly to Wu Jin. "We know almost nothing about these creatures." Wu Jin smiled at her. He was not afraid. He loved learning about new animals and new life forms. That was his job as a xenobiologist. "Don't worry, Sora. Most creatures are not as scary as they seem. They just want to live their lives like us." The ship's door opened with a hiss. Hot, thick air rushed in. It smelled like metal and something sweet that Wu Jin could not identify. Outside, tall alien beings waited for them. They looked like giant insects standing on two legs. Their skin was hard and shiny like armor. These were the Corvani. Next to the Corvani stood other aliens that looked more like lizards. They had green and brown scales and long tails. Their eyes were yellow and moved independently of each other. These were the Threks. Both alien races watched the humans with careful attention. An old alien stepped forward. He was shorter than the others and had patches of different colored fur on his arms. This was Dalsu, a trader who worked with many different species. He spoke in broken human language. "Welcome, humans. I am Dalsu. I help you understand Corvani ways. You must be very careful here." Captain Hyun-woo nodded politely. "We are honored to be here. We come in peace and hope to build friendship between our peoples." One of the Corvani made clicking sounds with its mouth parts. Dalsu listened and then turned back to the humans. "The Corvani leader says you must prove you are worthy. All new species must pass the test before they can trade or be friends." "What kind of test?" Wu Jin asked. He was curious about alien customs and traditions. A young Corvani female stepped forward. She wore bright red robes and had painted symbols on her face. This was Nari, a priestess of the Corvani religion. She spoke in a high musical voice that their translation devices turned into human words. "For 3,000 years," Nari said, "every species that wants to join our alliance must prove their courage. They must participate in the feeding of the Voidstalker. This is our most sacred tradition." Sora's hand moved closer to her weapon. "What exactly does this feeding involve?" Nari's large compound eyes reflected the light as she looked at each human. "Deep beneath our world in the sacred caves lives the Voidstalker. It is an ancient and powerful beast that guards our people. Every species must offer their finest warrior to the creature. The warrior goes into the caves alone. The Voidstalker devours the offering. This proves the species is committed to our alliance." The humans looked at each other with shock and worry. Captain Hyun-woo stepped forward. "You want us to sacrifice one of our people to this creature?" "It is the way," Nari said simply. "No species has ever refused and lived to tell about it. The Voidstalker's hunger must be satisfied, or it will become angry and destroy everything." Dalsu nodded sadly. "I have seen this ritual many times. Brave warriors from dozens of species have fed the beast. It is always the same. The warrior goes in, the creature eats, and then the alliance is made. Without this, there can be no friendship." Sora grabbed Captain Hyun-woo's arm. "We cannot do this. We cannot just throw away someone's life for a trade agreement." Wu Jin listened to everything carefully. He thought about what the aliens were saying. Something about their story did not make sense to him. Why would an advanced civilization base their most important tradition on feeding people to a monster? There had to be more to this story. "Tell me about this creature," Wu Jin said to Nari. "How big is it? What does it look like? How long has it lived in these caves?" Nari seemed surprised by his questions. Most warriors just wanted to know how to fight the beast. "The Voidstalker is enormous. Bigger than your ship. It has thick fur and glowing spots on its body, sharp teeth and claws. It has lived in the sacred caves since the beginning of time, protecting our people from ancient evils. Has anyone ever tried to communicate with it?" Wu Jin asked. The aliens looked confused. Dalsu translated the question, and several Corvani made agitated clicking sounds. "Communicate?" Nari said. "It is a beast. A sacred guardian, yes, but still just an animal. You cannot talk to such a creature, Wu Jin thought about this. In his experience, the more intelligent an animal was, the more likely it was to communicate in some way. Even Earth animals could learn to understand humans if treated with patience and kindness. Captain Hyunwoo was still arguing with the alien leaders. This is barbaric. We will not sacrifice our people for your superstitions. The Corvanian Threx became agitated. Their voices rose, and some of them made threatening gestures. Dalsu looked worried. Captain, you must understand. If you refuse the ritual, they will see it as an insult. They might attack your ship. They might declare war on all humans. The situation was getting dangerous. Sora had her hand on her weapon, ready to fight if necessary. The alien guards were also preparing for trouble. Wu Jin made a decision that surprised everyone. He stepped forward and raised his hands for attention. I will do it, he said loudly. I volunteer to face the Void Stalker. Wu Jin, no! Sora shouted. You are not a warrior. You study animals. You have never fought anything bigger than a laboratory rat. Captain Hyunwoo tried to stop him too. I cannot allow this. You are too valuable to the mission. But Wu Jin shook his head. This is what I do. I understand animals. Maybe I can find a different way to handle this situation. He looked at Nari and the other aliens. I accept your challenge. When do we begin? Nari seemed pleased but also worried. The ritual must happen tomorrow at sunset. Tonight you will fast and prepare your spirit. Tomorrow, you will enter the sacred caves alone. May your sacrifice honor your species. As they were led to temporary quarters, Sora grabbed Wu Jin's arm. Are you crazy? That thing is going to eat you. Wu Jin looked back toward the cave entrance visible in the distance. Maybe, he said quietly. But maybe there's another way. In all my years studying animals, I have learned one thing. There is always another way if you are willing to look for it. That night, Wu Jin lay awake thinking about the creature waiting in the caves below. Tomorrow he would meet the Void Stalker. Everyone expected him to die. But Wu Jin had different plans. He was going to try something that no other species had ever attempted before. He was going to try to understand the beast, not fight it. Hours passed in the dark cavern. Above, the aliens grew more confused and worried with each minute. Nari paced back and forth behind the energy barriers, her ceremonial robes rustling with each step. The ritual had never taken this long before. Something is wrong, she whispered to Dalsu. By now we should have heard the sounds of battle. The Void Stalker should have claimed its offering already. Dalsu watched the tunnel entrance with growing fascination. In all his years of witnessing these ceremonies, he had never seen anything like this. Usually the ritual lasted less than an hour. The warrior would enter the cave. There would be terrible roaring and screaming and then silence. This time there were only quiet voices drifting up from the depths. Down in the cavern, Wu Jin sat cross-legged on the stone floor, watching the enormous creature that everyone called the Void Stalker. The beast had settled down about 10 feet away from him, close enough that he could see the details of its fur and the way its bioluminescent spots pulsed in rhythm with its breathing. The more he observed, the more convinced Wu Jin became that this was not a monster at all. The creature's body language was cautious but not aggressive. When it moved, it was careful not to make sudden motions that might startle him. Its eyes, large and intelligent, followed his every movement with curiosity rather than hunger. You have been alone down here for a long time, haven't you? Wu Jin said softly. His voice echoed gently in the vast space. The creature's ears, which were much larger than a normal bear's, twitched at the sound of his words. The Void Stalker made a low rumbling sound deep in its chest. It was not threatening, more like the purring of a giant cat. Wu Jin smiled despite their strange situation. He had heard similar sounds from lonely animals on Earth. His communicator crackled to life. Wu Jin, came Sora's worried voice. Are you still alive down there? Yes, he whispered back, not wanting to disturb the creature. But I need those supplies I asked for. This animal is sick and hungry. I think it has been trapped down here much longer than anyone realizes. The aliens are getting nervous, Sora reported. They keep asking why the ritual is taking so long. Some of them think the Void Stalker might be playing with its food. Wu Jin looked at the massive creature resting nearby. Trust me, this beast is not playing with anything. It is just tired and lonely. Can you get me some food and medical supplies without causing too much trouble? There was a pause as Sora spoke with someone else. Then her voice came back. Captain Hyunwoo is trying to convince them to let us send down some things. He told them it is part of human warrior tradition to have ceremonial items. While they waited, Wu Jin slowly reached into his pack and pulled out his water bottle. The creature watched his movements carefully. He poured some water into a small metal cup and placed it on the ground, then pushed it gently toward the Void Stalker. The beast sniffed the water, then drank it gratefully. When it finished, it looked back at Wu Jin with an expression that was clearly thankful. It made another soft rumbling sound and moved slightly closer. "You are not getting enough water down here," Wu Jin observed, "and probably not enough food either. What have you been eating all these years?" The answer to that question made him feel sick. The creature had been surviving on the warriors that were sent down to fight it. But Wu Jin was beginning to understand that it had not been hunting them for sport. It had been eating them because it was starving. A rope dropped down from the tunnel entrance above. Tied to it was a bundle of supplies that Sora had managed to convince the aliens to allow. Wu Jin carefully untied the package, trying not to make any sudden movements that might frighten the creature. Inside the bundle, he found several emergency food packets, a basic medical kit, and more water. There was also a note from Sora that said, "Be careful, they are getting suspicious up here." Wu Jin opened one of the food packets, a dried meat ration that was designed to provide quick nutrition for human explorers. He tore it into smaller pieces and offered them to the Void Stalker. The creature ate eagerly, its massive jaws surprisingly gentle as it took the food from his hands. Wu Jin noticed that its teeth, while large and sharp, were designed more for cutting vegetation than for hunting prey. This was not a pure carnivore. As the beast ate, Wu Jin was able to get a closer look at its condition. What he saw made him angry at the aliens above. The creature's fur was matted with dirt and old blood. There were several infected wounds along its sides that looked like they had been made by mining equipment. Its left rear leg was clearly injured, causing it to limp when it moved. "What did they do to you?" Wu Jin whispered, reaching slowly toward one of the wounds. The creature flinched but did not pull away. It seemed to understand that he was trying to help. Using supplies from the medical kit, Wu Jin began cleaning the infected wounds. The Void Stalker made soft whimpering sounds, but it held still and let him work. The creature's trust was both touching and heartbreaking. As he worked, Wu Jin began to piece together what had really happened. The crystalline growths on the creature's back suggested that it had once lived in areas rich in certain minerals. The wounds looked like they had been caused by mining lasers and digging equipment. The Void Stalker had not always lived in these deep caves, it had been driven here. "You used to live up there, didn't you?" he said gently as he applied healing gel to a particularly bad cut. "In the upper caves where the minerals are. But then the Corvani started mining and you had to go deeper and deeper to find safe places to live." The creature's response was a long, mournful sound that echoed through the cavern. It was the saddest thing Wu Jin had ever heard. His communicator buzzed again. This time it was Captain Hyunwoo's voice. "Wu Jin, the aliens are demanding to know what is happening. The priestess says the ritual should have been finished hours ago. They are starting to think something has gone wrong. Something has gone wrong." Wu Jin replied quietly, "But not the way they think. Captain, this creature is not a sacred guardian. It is a refugee. The Corvani have been destroying its habitat with their mining operations, and then forcing it to survive on ritual sacrifices." Above, in the ceremonial chamber, Nari pressed closer to the energy barrier, trying to hear what the human was saying. His words, carried up by the tunnel's acoustics, were reaching her ears. What she heard challenged everything she had been taught about the sacred ritual. "That cannot be true," she whispered to Dalsu. "The Void Stalker has always lived in the deep caves. It has always required offerings. This is the way it has always been." But Dalsu was thinking about what he had seen over the years. The mining operations had been expanding deeper and deeper into the cave systems, and the creatures that were brought up from the new mining areas, some of them had looked similar to descriptions of the Void Stalker. Down in the cavern, Wu Jin had finished treating the creature's wounds. The Void Stalker was resting more comfortably now, its breathing deeper and more relaxed. For the first time in years, someone had shown it kindness instead of fear. "What is your real name?" Wu Jin asked softly, reaching out to gently stroke the creature's massive head. The fur was softer than he had expected, despite being dirty and matted. "You deserve a real name, not just Void Stalker." The creature leaned into his touch, making a sound that was almost like a purr. In that moment, Wu Jin realized that he had accomplished something no other species had ever attempted. He had made contact with the Void Stalker not as an enemy to be defeated, but as a living being to be understood. "I think I will call you Stalker," he said with a smile, "but not because you are a hunter, because you have been stalking through these caves, searching for a safe place to call home." Stalker rumbled softly in response, as if approving of the name. For the first time in the recorded history of the ritual, the Void Stalker had found something better than another meal. It had found a friend. Above them, the aliens continued to wait and worry, unaware that their most sacred tradition was about to be changed forever by one human's simple act of compassion. The sun was setting on the alien world, painting the sky in colors that Wu Jin had never seen before. Purple clouds drifted across an orange sky while two small moons rose in the distance. It would have been beautiful if he was not walking toward what everyone believed would be his death. Nari led the ceremony, wearing her bright red robes and chanting in the ancient Korvani language. Her voice echoed off the stone walls as they walked deeper into the cave system. Behind them followed dozens of aliens from different species, all coming to witness the traditional feeding. Dalsu walked beside Wu Jin, looking sad and worried. "I have seen this many times," the old trader said quietly. "Good warriors, brave fighters from many worlds. They all believed they could defeat the Void Stalker. None of them came back out." Wu Jin carried a small pack with basic supplies: water, some food, a flashlight, and his scientific instruments. The aliens had wanted to give him weapons, but he refused them. "Weapons will not help me with what I plan to do," he had told them. Sora walked on his other side, still trying to change his mind. "It is not too late," she whispered. "We can fight our way out of here. My ship has enough firepower to level this whole area." "And then what?" Wu Jin asked. "We would make enemies of every species in this part of the galaxy. Humans would be known as the race that destroys sacred sites and kills innocent people. Is that really better?" They reached a large chamber where the walls were covered in strange symbols and paintings. Some of the artwork was very old, but Wu Jin noticed that some of it looked newer. The paintings showed the Void Stalker in different ways, sometimes as a terrible monster with blood dripping from its teeth, sometimes as a majestic guardian protecting the Korvani people. "These paintings tell the story of the ritual," Nari explained as she prepared her ceremonial items. "For 3,000 years, the Void Stalker has protected our people by consuming the offerings. Each sacrifice makes our alliance stronger." Wu Jin studied the paintings more carefully. Something was bothering him about the story, but he could not figure out what it was yet. The older paintings showed the creature differently than the newer ones. In the ancient artwork, the Void Stalker looked more like a guardian or protector. In the recent paintings, it looked more like a monster. The ceremony began. Nari lit special candles that filled the air with sweet-smelling smoke. The other aliens formed a circle around Wu Jin and began chanting. Their voices created a strange harmony that echoed through the caves. "Great Void Stalker," Nari called out in her musical voice, "we bring you an offering from the human species. Accept this warrior's sacrifice and bless our new alliance. Let his death prove the commitment of his people to our cause." Captain Hyunwoo spoke through Wu Jin's hidden communicator. "Wu Jin, you still have time to change your mind. We can find another way to make peace with these people." But Wu Jin shook his head. He had made his decision. "I am going to learn about this creature," he said quietly. "Maybe I can discover something that will help both humans and aliens understand each other better." Nari led him to the entrance of a tunnel that went deeper into the earth. Energy barriers flickered to life, protecting the watching aliens from whatever might come out of the caves. Only Wu Jin would go beyond this point. "The tunnel leads to the Void Stalker's domain," Nari said. "It has lived there since ancient times, growing larger and more powerful. When you reach the main chamber, call out to announce your presence. The beast will come for you quickly." Wu Jin looked back at Sora one last time. She was crying, something he had never seen her do before. "Take care of yourself," he said to her. "And remember, sometimes the bravest thing you can do is try to understand instead of trying to fight." He walked into the tunnel alone. His flashlight beam danced ahead of him, showing smooth stone walls that had been carved by water over many years. The air grew cooler as he went deeper, and he could hear the sound of dripping water echoing from somewhere ahead. The tunnel wound back and forth, always leading downward. Wu Jin tried to remember everything he knew about animal behavior. Most creatures that lived in caves were not naturally aggressive. They became dangerous when they felt threatened or when they were protecting their territory. If he could show the Void Stalker that he was not a threat, maybe he could avoid a fight. After walking for almost an hour, the tunnel opened into an enormous cavern. Wu Jin's flashlight could not reach the walls or ceiling. The space was so large that his footsteps echoed for several seconds before fading away. Somewhere in the darkness, he could hear the sound of heavy breathing. He sat down on a large rock and turned off his flashlight. His eyes slowly adjusted to the darkness, and he began to see faint glowing spots scattered around the cavern. The lights pulsed slowly like a heartbeat. "Hello?" Wu Jin called out softly. "I know you are there. I'm not here to fight you. I just want to meet you." The breathing sound stopped. In the silence, Wu Jin could hear his own heartbeat pounding in his ears. Then very slowly the glowing spots began to move. They were getting closer. A low rumbling sound filled the cavern like distant thunder, but Wu Jin realized it was not thunder. It was the creature's voice. The Void Stalker was much larger than he had expected. As it moved closer, he could see its outline against the faint glow from its own body. The creature was indeed enormous, easily the size of a small building. But its movements were slow and careful, not aggressive like a predator stalking prey. Wu Jin watched its body language, using his training to read the signs. The Void Stalker approached to about 20 feet away and stopped. In the dim light, Wu Jin could see that it looked like a giant bear, but with crystal formations growing along its back. The glowing spots were scattered across its thick fur, pulsing with soft blue and green light. Most importantly, Wu Jin noticed that the creature was not attacking. It was watching him, studying him just as he was studying it. Its large eyes reflected his flashlight beam, showing intelligence and curiosity rather than hunger or anger. "You are not what they said you were," Wu Jin whispered. "Are you?" The creature tilted its massive head, almost like a dog trying to understand human speech. It made another rumbling sound, softer this time, less threatening. Wu Jin slowly reached into his pack and pulled out a piece of food. It was just a protein bar from his emergency supplies, but he hoped the creature might be interested. He placed it on the ground between them and then backed away. The Void Stalker sniffed the air, then carefully approached the food. It picked up the protein bar with surprising gentleness and ate it quickly. When it finished, it looked back at Wu Jin with what could only be described as hope. "You are hungry," Wu Jin said, understanding beginning to dawn on him. "How long has it been since someone gave you food instead of trying to fight you?" The creature moved closer, and Wu Jin could see more details. Its fur was matted and dirty. There were old scars along its sides, and it seemed to be favoring one of its back legs. This was not a terrifying monster. This was a sick, lonely animal that had been trapped in these caves for who knows how long. Above them, the aliens waited for the sounds of battle, for the roars and screams that always marked the feeding ritual. But the only sounds coming from the cave were Wu Jin's gentle voice and the creature's soft, rumbling responses. "Sora," Wu Jin spoke into his communicator. "Are you listening?" "Yes," came her worried voice. "Are you hurt? What is happening down there?" "I need you to do something for me," Wu Jin said quietly, not wanting to startle the creature. "I need more food. Lots of food. And medical supplies if you can get them." There was a long pause. "Medical supplies. Wu Jin, what are you doing down there?" "I think," Wu Jin said as the Void Stalker settled down near him with a tired sigh, "I am making a friend." 3 days later, the ceremonial cavern was filled with more aliens than had ever gathered for a ritual before. Representatives from dozens of species had come to witness something unprecedented, the end of the ancient feeding, tradition and the beginning of something entirely new. Captain Hyunwoo stood with his engineering team, studying the complex plans they had drawn up for moving Stalker to a new home. The creature was too large and too fragile to be moved easily, but the humans had experience with relocating endangered animals on Earth. "The transport ship is ready," reported Engineer Kim, a quiet woman who specialized in environmental systems. "We have created a temporary habitat that should keep Stalker comfortable during the journey to the sanctuary moon." Nari stood nearby, no longer wearing her ceremonial robes. She had given up her position as a priestess, choosing instead to become Stalker's advocate and protector. The young Corvani had spent the last 3 days learning everything she could about proper animal care from Wu Jin. "The Corvani Council has agreed to fund the sanctuary," she reported. "It is the least we can do after 3,000 years of what we did." Her voice still carried the pain of learning that her people's most sacred tradition had been built on a terrible mistake. Down in the cavern, Wu Jin sat beside Stalker, gently brushing the creature's fur with a specially made brush. Over the past few days, as Stalker's health improved with proper food and medical care, the creature's natural beauty had become apparent. The bioluminescent spots in its fur now glowed brightly, creating beautiful patterns across its massive body. "Are you ready for your big journey, my friend?" Wu Jin asked softly. Stalker rumbled in response, a sound that Wu Jin had learned meant contentment and trust. The process of moving Stalker had required careful planning and cooperation between multiple species. The Threx had provided their expertise in cave engineering to create safe passage routes. The Corvani had shared their knowledge of Stalker's needs and habits, information that had been gathered over centuries but misunderstood until now. Most importantly, Dalsu had used his connections with traders and transport companies to arrange for a ship large enough to carry Stalker safely to the new sanctuary. "In all my years of trade," the old alien said to Captain Hyunwoo, "I have never seen anything like this. One human has changed the course of history for an entire region of space." Sora stood guard nearby, but her role had changed completely. Instead of protecting the humans from Stalker, she was now protecting Stalker from any aliens who still believed the old ways were correct. Not everyone was happy about ending the ritual tradition. "There are still some groups that think this is all a mistake," she reported to Wu Jin. "They believe we are disrupting a sacred balance. But most of the species representatives support the new plan." The new plan was ambitious. The humans had proposed creating a wildlife sanctuary on one of the uninhabited moons in the system. The sanctuary would be home not just to Stalker, but to other displaced creatures that had been affected by the expanding mining operations. More importantly, the sanctuary would serve as a research station where multiple species could study and learn from each other. It would be a symbol of cooperation instead of domination, understanding instead of fear. "The transport team is ready," announced Captain Hyunwoo through the communicator. "Woo-jin, we need to begin the move soon. The ship's life support systems are optimized for Stalker's needs, but we should not delay longer than necessary." Woo-jin stood up and looked at Stalker's massive face. The creature's eyes showed intelligence and trust, but also nervousness about leaving the only home it had known for thousands of years. "I know you are scared," Woo-jin said gently, "but where we are going will be better. There will be sunlight and fresh air and room to walk around. You will never have to live in dark caves again." Nari approached carefully. Over the past few days, she had been learning to communicate with Stalker using a combination of words and gestures. The creature had proven remarkably good at understanding different languages. "Stalker," she said in her musical voice, "I want to apologize for my people. We did not understand what we were doing to you. We thought we were following ancient wisdom, but we were only following ancient fear." Stalker turned its great head toward her and made a soft sound. Wu Jin had learned to interpret the creature's vocalizations, and this one clearly meant forgiveness. Despite everything that had been done to it, Stalker held no hatred for the aliens who had imprisoned it. The moving process took several hours. A team of engineers had created a special platform that could carry Stalker through the tunnels without causing injury. The creature was nervous but cooperative, trusting Wu Jin and Nari to guide it safely. As they emerged from the deep caves for the first time in thousands of years, Stalker stopped and stared up at the sky in wonder. The creature had never seen the open sky before, had never felt natural sunlight on its fur. The bioluminescent spots across its body began pulsing in new patterns, as if responding to the natural light. "Look at that," whispered Dalsu in amazement. "It is like watching a star being born." The transport ship was waiting on the landing platform, its cargo bay specially modified to accommodate Stalker's size. The creature was reluctant to enter the unfamiliar space, but Wu Jin walked beside it, providing constant reassurance. "I will be with you the whole time," he promised, "and when we reach your new home, you will have space to run and explore. You will never be trapped again." The journey to the sanctuary moon took 2 days. During the trip, Stalker gradually relaxed as it realized that this was not another prison, but transportation to freedom. Wu Jin spent most of the time in the cargo bay with the creature, monitoring its health and providing companionship. Nari also stayed close, practicing the new songs she had written to replace the old ritual chants. Instead of songs about sacrifice and feeding, her new compositions were about healing and friendship, cooperation and understanding. When they arrived at the sanctuary moon, Stalker's reaction exceeded everyone's expectations. The moment the cargo bay doors opened and the creature saw the vast open spaces, the lakes and forests that had been prepared for it, Stalker began making sounds of pure joy. The creature bounded out of the ship with surprising grace for something so large, running through the tall grass and splashing in the clean water. For the first time in thousands of years, Stalker was free to be what it had always been meant to be. Not a monster or a guardian, but simply a magnificent living being enjoying life. This is how the ritual should have always been, Nari said, tears of happiness streaming down her face. Not death and fear, but life and celebration. In the weeks that followed, scientists and diplomats from dozens of species came to visit the sanctuary. They came to study Stalker, but they also came to learn about the new approach to interspecies relations that the humans had demonstrated. Wu Jin established a research station on the moon, dedicating his life to understanding Stalker and protecting other displaced creatures. Sora became the sanctuary's head of security, ensuring that no one would ever threaten the creatures under their protection again. Dalsu retired from trading to become an ambassador for the Sanctuary Project, using his connections throughout the galaxy to spread the story of what had happened. The tale of the human who chose understanding over violence became legend among dozens of species. And Nari founded a new religious movement based on protection and healing instead of sacrifice. Her followers, known as the Healers of the Void, dedicated themselves to finding and helping creatures that had been displaced by industrial expansion. Years later, as Wu Jin sat beside the lake watching Stalker play in the water with some of the other rescued creatures, he reflected on how much had changed. The simple act of choosing compassion over violence had transformed an entire region of space. "You know," he said to Stalker, who was resting in the shade nearby, "I think this worked out better than anyone expected." Stalker rumbled in agreement, a sound of pure contentment. The creature that had once been called the Void Stalker was now simply Stalker. Not a monster to be feared, but a friend to be cherished. In the distance, a ship was landing with another group of visitors, more species coming to learn about the sanctuary and the new ways of cooperation it represented. The feeding ritual was over forever, replaced by something much more powerful, the ritual of understanding. As the sun set over the sanctuary moon, painting the sky in brilliant colors, Wu Jin smiled and patted Stalker's massive head. Sometimes, he thought, the bravest thing you can do is simply choose to see others as friends instead of enemies. And sometimes, that choice can change the entire galaxy. The night passed slowly in the deep cavern. Wu Jin slept fitfully against a smooth stone wall while Stalker rested nearby, the creature's bioluminescent spots providing a gentle glow in the darkness. When Wu Jin woke, he found Stalker watching him with patient, intelligent eyes. "Good morning, friend," Wu Jin said softly, stretching his sore muscles. Stalker made a low rumbling sound that almost sounded like a greeting in return. With daylight filtering down from far above, Wu Jin could see more details of the cavern. The walls were covered with strange markings that he had not noticed in the darkness. Some looked natural, carved by water and time, but others looked deliberate, made by intelligent hands or claws. Moving carefully so as not to alarm Stalker, Wu Jin approached one of the walls to examine the markings more closely. What he found made him gasp with surprise. The marks were a form of writing or art, but not made by the Corvani or any other species he knew about. The style was completely different, more flowing and organic. "Did you make these?" he asked Stalker, pointing at the wall. The creature lifted its massive head and looked where he was pointing, then made a soft sound that might have been confirmation. Wu Jin studied the markings with growing excitement. If Stalker had created these symbols, it meant the creature was not just intelligent, it was artistic. It had a culture of its own. This was not a mindless beast that existed only to devour offerings. This was a sophisticated being with thoughts and feelings and creative expression. His communicator crackled to life. "Wu Jin," came Sora's voice. "The aliens are getting really worried up here. They want to know if you are still alive." "I am fine," he replied quietly, "but I am learning things that are going to change everything." "Sora, this creature is not what they think it is. It is intelligent. It has its own language, its own art. We are not dealing with a monster, we are dealing with a person." Above in the ceremonial chamber, Nari heard these words through the acoustics of the tunnel. She had been listening to the humans' conversations all night, and each revelation troubled her more deeply. Everything she had been taught about the Voidstalker was being challenged. This cannot be true, she whispered to herself. But doubt was growing in her mind. She thought about the mining operations that had expanded into the deeper caves over the past few decades. She remembered stories her grandmother had told about the early days, when the Voidstalker had seemed different somehow. Dalsu approached her with a worried expression. "Young priestess," he said quietly, "I have been thinking about what the human is saying. In my many years of trade, I have visited the deep mining sites. Some of the creatures we have found there, they had crystal formations like the ones described for the Voidstalker." Nari stared at him in shock. "Are you saying that that the ritual is based on a mistake?" Down in the cavern, Wujin was making more discoveries. As he explored the space with Stalker following slowly behind him, he found evidence of a complex living area. There were places where the creature had arranged stones into what looked like sleeping areas. There were collections of interesting rocks and crystals organized in patterns. Most telling of all, there were the remains of attempts to grow plants in the limited light that filtered down from above. "You have been trying to make a life for yourself down here," Wujin said with growing sadness. "But this is not where you belong, is it?" Stalker moved to one wall of the cavern and placed a massive paw against it. Following the gesture, Wujin saw that there were tunnel openings leading to other areas. Some had been blocked by fallen rocks. Others were too small for Stalker's current size, though they might have been large enough when the creature was younger and smaller. "You have been trapped down here," Wujin realized. "The mining operations collapsed your old home and you had to come deeper to survive. But the deeper you went, the harder it became to find food and water. That is why you needed the offerings. Not because you are a monster, but because you were starving." The truth of the situation was becoming clear. The ancient tradition was not ancient at all. It had started when the Corvani mining operations began driving Stalker deeper underground. The creature had been forced to survive on whatever food came into its domain, including the warriors sent to fight it. But Stalker had never wanted to be a killer. Wujin could see the sadness in the creature's eyes, the loneliness that came from years of being feared and hated. Every time a warrior came down to fight, Stalker had defended itself, but it had taken no joy in the victories. "Sora," Wujin said into his communicator, "I need you to do something important. Find out how long the mining operations have been going on. Find out when they first started digging into the deep cave systems." There was a pause as Sora spoke with someone above. Then her voice came back with information that confirmed Wujin's suspicions. "The deep mining started about 3,000 years ago. The same time as the ritual tradition began," Wujin finished. "Sora, this creature is not a sacred guardian. It is a victim. The Corvani accidentally destroyed its home and then turned its struggle to survive into a religious ceremony." Above, Nari was listening to every word with growing horror. The implications of what the human was saying were staggering. If he was right, then her people had been torturing an innocent creature for thousands of years, all while believing they were following sacred tradition. She approached the energy barrier and called down into the tunnel. "Human, can you hear me?" Wujin looked up in surprise. It was the first time any of the aliens had tried to communicate with him during the ritual. "Yes, I can hear you." "What you are saying about the mining operations," Nari called down, her voice shaking with emotion. "Can you prove it?" Wujin looked at Stalker, who was watching the conversation with intelligent attention. The creature seemed to understand that something important was happening. "Yes," Wujin called back, "but I need you to come down here and see for yourself. Stalker will not hurt you if you approach with respect." The suggestion caused chaos above. The other aliens began arguing loudly. The idea of entering the Voidstalker's domain without being an official offering was unthinkable. It went against everything they believed about the ritual, but Nari was young and her faith was already shaken by what she had heard. Against the protests of the others, she began to approach the energy barrier. "I will come down," she announced. "If this human speaks the truth, then we have committed a terrible crime against an innocent being." "I must see for myself." Dalsu tried to stop her. "Young priestess, this is madness. The Voidstalker will kill you the moment you enter its domain." "No," Nari said with growing certainty. "I do not think it will. I have been listening to the sounds from below all night. I have heard no roars of anger, no sounds of hunting. I have heard only the voice of a lonely creature responding to kindness. She stepped through the energy barrier and began walking down the tunnel toward the cavern below. With each step, she was breaking thousands of years of tradition and religious law, but she was also taking the first step toward understanding the truth. Down in the cavern, Wu Jin heard her footsteps approaching. "Easy, stalker," he said gently to the creature. "Someone is coming to meet you. Show her that you are not the monster they think you are." Stalker rumbled softly and moved closer to Wu Jin, as if seeking reassurance. The creature was nervous about meeting another alien, which was understandable given that every alien encounter for thousands of years had ended in violence. Nari appeared at the entrance to the cavern, her bright red robes a splash of color in the dim light. She gasped when she saw Stalker up close, but it was not fear in her voice, it was wonder. "By the ancient stars," she whispered. "You are beautiful." Stalker tilted its massive head, studying this new visitor. Wu Jin could see the creature's intelligence working, evaluating whether this alien was a threat or a potential friend. "Come slowly," Wu Jin advised Nari. "Stalker has been hurt by your people for a long time, but if you approach with peace, I think you will be surprised by what you find." Nari took a careful step forward, then another. As she drew closer, she could see the evidence that Wu Jin had discovered. The artwork on the walls, the organized living space, the clear signs of intelligence and creativity. "We were wrong," she whispered, tears beginning to flow down her face. "We were so very wrong about everything."